Hi, my name is Megan Heger, and I'm going to talk to you about the 3 theories that I chose to discuss, the strengths and weaknesses of those theories, some hands-on examples, and then at the end I'm going to talk to you about questions that I would ask my staff about student motivation. The first theory that I'm going to discuss with you is the motivation hygiene theory. This theory seeks to determine what causes motivation, whether it's with your students, with your staff, and finding how they are motivated. A strength for this theory is that it focuses on a group and what they're motivated by, so you kind of get to know your group. It examines the positive and the negative attitudes towards their work environment, whether it's in the classroom or the school work environment. A weakness that I found for this theory is that it focuses on a group aspect instead of an individual aspect on an individual basis. By not focusing on the individuals, you might be leaving some individuals out when determining what motivates your group. An example in my classroom would be the Mr. Potato Head kind of thing that we have in my classroom. Mr. Potato Head, as you know, has the different body parts that you can add or take away. So if in my classroom, if the class as a whole is doing really well, then I add a body part. And if they're kind of doing something that I'd rather them not do, such as talking or being out of control, then I remove a body part. At the beginning of the year, we discuss what would be a good reward. Then we vote on what we think would be the best. So that would be the group theory, deciding what would be a motivating factor for good behavior, and then rewarding them with the good behavior and having a group outcome. The next theory that I'm going to talk to you about is the self-efficacy theory. This theory focuses on a person's belief that he or she is able to perform a particular task successfully. A strength in this theory would be it would be successful with positive minded students who have the mindset, if I believe I can achieve. A weakness would be a lack of motivation for a student who has low self-esteem. A student who thinks that, I can't do this, it's just going to be too hard, aren't going to be motivated by this self-efficacy theory. An example I would have for this theory comes from a classroom routine that we had. It was called Stick It. I would have a Stick It question each morning, and before we switched classrooms, I would ask the Stick It questions, and then students would write their answer on a sticky note and stick it up on the board. A way that I would use this self-efficacy theory is I would choose a struggling student who sometimes struggle in whatever topic we're discussing, and I would work one-on-one with them so we could come up with the correct answer. And then when they put their stick it on the board, I would ask them to explain their answer and kind of build up their self-esteem. This also helps them, we walked through, and now he or she is explaining how they did it, and it's a good way for them to build their knowledge and gain confidence. The last theory that I'm going to talk to you about is the learned needs theory. This theory is based on the premise that people acquire or learn certain needs from their culture influences, especially their environment. A strength for this theory would be positive reinforcement for positive behavior. So if you see something positive going on, you could applaud or acknowledge the positive behavior. And that goes hand in hand with the weakness of this theory. If there's a lot of negative influences, there's going to be some negative behavior. A hands-on example of this would be my behavior chart for my classroom. I'm sure many of you have some sort of chart in your classroom. My chart is a color chart where the students start to green, and if they're doing positive, going out of their way to be nice to a classmate or doing what they're told, then they get to move up in the chart. And if they're exhibiting negative behavior, then they're going to move down in the chart. So whenever I would have a student move up for good behavior, I would make sure and take time to explain to the class why the student gets to move their name up, what kind of positive behavior they exhibited. And same thing goes for a negative behavior. I would talk about a negative behavior, what a better choice would be. And so, when you move the name up, everyone wants to be doing the same thing that the person who moved their name up is doing, so they would kind of do a self-check and make sure that they were doing kind of what their environment was doing and reacting appropriately. The last thing that I'm going to talk to you about is a question I would ask my staff members if I was an administrator discussing motivation theories. Some of the questions I would ask them would be, what motivates you? What motivates you to do your best? What kind of motivation do you look for? And opposite of that, I would ask them, what doesn't motivate them? Like, is there something that they know that it just doesn't motivate them? It doesn't do anything for them. So kind of thinking about what motivators are, and things that would not motivate. The next question that I would ask, what are some positive influences you see around you? Who do you see as a positive influence? Who do you see as a motivator? And kind of give that pep up to that person who is being motivated and who is being a good influence. And, I wouldn't have them write this last one down, but who is being a negative influence? Think about why they're a negative influence. Are you showing any examples or doing anything that would be a negative influence? I would probably do these questions in a survey-based form, and then if time allowed, ask for more detail or ask them to elaborate on them kind of on a one-on-one basis, so I could kind of get a more in-depth look of how they're feeling. So I talked to you about the motivation hygiene theory, the self-efficacy theory, and the learned needs theory. And then I talked to you about the questions that I would kind of ask my staff about student motivation. So I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say, and thanks for listening.